the sound from the pavement. Has the moon lost her memory? She is smiling alone. In the lamplight, the withered leaves collect at my feet, and the wind begins to mourn. Memory, all alone in the moonlight, I can smile at the old days. I was beautiful then. I remember the time I knew what happiness was. Let the memories to beat a fatalistic have gutters, and soon it will be morning. Daylight, I must wait for the sunrise. I must think of a new life, and I mustn't give in. When the dawn comes, tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin. Burnt out ends of smoky days, the stale cold smell of morning. A street lamp dies, another night is over, another day is dawning. Touch me, it's so easy to leave me all alone with the memory of my days in the sun. If you touch me, you'll understand what happiness is. Look, a new day has begun.
Good afternoon, everyone, and may I welcome you to McLaren's funeral parlour today as we pay tribute to and give thanks for a lady who, through her life, made such an impact on so many others. My name is Raymond, and I have the absolute honour of leading us through the service today, a service in which we are going to remember and celebrate the life of a mum, a mother-in-law, a gran, a sister, a sister-in-law, an auntie, a cousin, a neighbour, and a really good friend, Grace Miller. May I, at the beginning, on behalf of Fiona and Lynn and the rest of the family, thank each and every one of you for being here today. But not only that, but also to thank you for the many calls and cards and visits that they have received as a family over these past few days. It is very much appreciated and has been of great help to them. There are others whom, due to circumstances, are not able to be here today at the service. And I want to mention Grace's family in Australia, who are watching on live stream, and also other family members from down south who are unable to be here. And of course, our sympathy extends to them. Now, before we go any further, I would just like to take a moment and pray and ask God to be with us here today. So let's take a moment and do that. Father, we pray for everyone here today. We thank you for the life that Grace led. And thank you not only for what she did in that life, but also who she was in that life. We thank you for the memories that the family have of Grace, and we ask that they would be a comfort to them as we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. There are 2 hymns on your order of service, and I'm going to ask you now to stand together as we sing the first hymn, The Lord's My Shepherd. Let's stand. Thank you. My shepherd, I was lost. He makes me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me by the quiet waters. Thank you. Please take your seats. In the time that we have here today, we may not be able to say everything that could be said about Grace, the stories and what she meant to so many. But we will do our best, and we will reflect a little on that during this service. Grace Lynn McDougall Carson was born on the 6th of August 1937 at her home in Moffat Mills here in Airdrie, to her proud parents George and Mary. They stayed in Hillrig Cottage and were joined there by their wee brother Alex a few years later. In 1948 they moved to the small village of Gapness, where Grace lived until she was married in 1961. As a child she went to Moffat Mills Infant School and then to Clarkston Primary, where she dragged her wee brother Alex along every morning onto the bus. Perhaps Alex will be very happy at that, because that's one of the reasons why he may have become a nuclear engineer because she forced you to go to school. As a teenager, she attended Airdrie Central Secondary School, where she joined the local Harriers Club, the running club, and she was a proficient runner, especially in the relay with her school friends. When Grace left school, her first job was at Weir's in Airdrie, where she worked as a bookkeeper, meeting lifelong friends. They weren't just work colleagues, they were friends. May Todd, Margaret Ashenhurst. She was there until she married and until she had children. In the mid-1950s, Grace met the love of her life, Gavin Miller. They met at the Airdrie Amateur Dramatics Society. Rumour has it that whilst Grace was on stage, Gavin, who was on the lights, used to always put the spotlight on Grace, even when she wasn't centre stage. That's the rumour that Grace told everyone anyway. They became a courting couple, which I now believe is what they call they talk to one another. So they talked for a few years, and then in 1961 they married at Wellwine Church, again here in Airdrie. Once married, they enjoyed holidays both abroad and here in Scotland, with a real sense of adventure. They set off to France, Germany, and Switzerland on a motorbike. Can you imagine Grace squishing her hair into a helmet? Don't think so. They loved the west coast of Scotland and all the stunning white beaches. The south of France, however, was memorable for them. But this was memorable for a different reason for Fiona and Lynn a few years later. This was a holiday that Gavin had asked Grace to pose while stretching and picking an apple from a tree. Whilst he filmed this, he recorded her doing this on his cine camera. Nothing wrong with that. And a very innocent thing to do, I hear you say. Well, that was, until many years later, when at home Grace decided to show some holiday films to Fiona and Lynn and her boyfriend at the time. Grace picked up a random film, which was this instance of her picking the apple from the tree. As the film began to play, to her horror, Grace suddenly remembered that whilst picking the apple from the tree, she was topless. Much hilarity for Fiona and Lynn, but major embarrassment for her boyfriend. Now, Grace was also not one of those life's natural chefs. One example, and we've only got time for one because there are quite a number of them, I think, was when she wanted to make a clotted dumpling. She went to the local store in Airdrie, and the lady there was known to make the best dumpling in the town. She got the recipe from her, bought all the ingredients. She was all chuffed with herself. Unfortunately, the lady forgot to tell Grace that the recipe was for at least 12 people at a time. The mixture was found to be all over the cooker in the kitchen. Once both the girls were approaching school age, Grace and Gavin built a family home in Chapel Hall called Ledaig, named after the West Coast location they loved so much. Although this was a beautiful home, the only slight issue was the view from the back garden. Grace loved to look out across the fields, but there were some trees that were in the way. Not for long, for Grace decided on her own to cut the trees down. Gavin, to be honest, wasn't too amused, wasn't too impressed when he got home and saw what had happened. He was even less amused when during the night he was wakened by the sound of a herd of mooing cows in the back garden, eating all the roses. He had to chase the cows back into the field in the middle of the night in his underpants. The family was so important to Grace. She loved her girls. Some parents are blessed with the gift of their own children. But some parents are blessed with the gift and the responsibility of choosing their children. And Fiona and Lynn were both lovingly and specially chosen by Grace and Gavin to become part of their family. Now, after the girls went to school, Grace was tasked with bookkeeping, a bookkeeping role in Gavin's business. Gavin Miller Electrical Contractor in Hallcraig Street in Airdrie. And this is where Grace invented what is now called flexi time. The reason behind this was Grace openly stated she didn't like doing mornings. So she would arrive at work about 10:30 in the morning and leave about 2 p.m. so she could be home in time for the girls. I guess that's one of the perks when you were married to the boss. Grace and Gavin were wonderful parents to Fiona and Lynn. They made sure they not only had what they wanted, but more importantly, what they needed. They made sure they had a wonderful upbringing, a safe one, a happy one, especially their caravan holidays to Ayr, North Berwick, and occasionally the sunnier climates of Biggar. It didn't matter where they went, because wonderful memories were made for them as a family. One memory was when they went on one of their many caravan holidays to Ayr. They stopped off for some lunch at a local golf club. Grace decided to treat herself to a gin and orange. The kids also got their drinks. Everything was fine. Until after a few sips, Grace noticed a change in Lynn's behaviour. As Lynn became a little bit more boisterous, a little bit more giggly, this is when Grace discovered she had accidentally mixed her gin and orange with Lynn's plain orange juice. A simple mistake anyone could have made. Grace and Gavin made sure Fiona and Lynn were brought up in a loving home. They were a great example to them as parents. After being married for 24 years, just short of their silver wedding anniversary, Grace and the girls were devastated when Gavin passed away in January 1985, aged only 53. Grace was widowed at just 47, but showed the resilience she continued to show throughout her life. She got a job in the office at Caldervale High School for a few years. But once Fiona and Lynn were on the road to adulthood themselves, Grace moved to her beloved Rossi. This was a place she loved all of her life and was able to enjoy the companionship of her cousins. After her mother Mary died, she took Father George to Rossi to live there in a residential home which was owned by one of her friends. Soon afterwards, Grace found out that they were actually looking for someone to do the night shift at the home. She applied for a job and got it. After a short time, Grace phoned Fiona and explained although she really did enjoy doing the job, she was struggling with the night shift. She was feeling tired all the time and didn't know how Fiona's husband Derek, who was a police officer at the time, managed doing the night shift. Transpired that Grace didn't actually go to sleep during the day, and so she was up all day and then working all night. No wonder she was a bit tired. After her dad George died, she moved back to the mainland in Knightswood in Glasgow. Was there for a few years, and a few years later moved to Newarthill to be closer to her daughters and her new sons-in-law Derek and Mario. Over the years, Grace had other little family members, shall we say. She had two pet King Charles Spaniels. Firstly, Robbie, who she would let sleep in her bed beside her. She commented that one day she had woken up to see his head on the pillow, smiling at her. After Robbie, she got Lucy, who had been used for breeding and was rescued actually from a puppy farm where she had been mistreated. Grace loved her only for a couple of years before she departed due to ill health. As Grace grew older, she continued to show the love to her girls. The love that grew a little bit more as her family grew, with Derek marrying Fiona and Mario marrying Lynn. But I'm sorry to Derek and Mario, her love got even stronger and bigger when it came to the grandchildren, Fabio, Olivia and Ava. Grace always called them her pride and joy. She loved babysitting them, listening to music with them, telling them stories, reading to them, and ironing all their little cute clothes. Ultimately, Grace spoiled them in only the way a gran could spoil grandchildren. She would take them on adventures on the bus, going to the caravan, creating childhood memories of a real get-up and fun gran. She went on a ski trip to France with them so they could enjoy the snow at Christmas time. Her grandchildren always put a smile on Gran's face. When Lynn, Mario and the grandchildren moved to Australia, Grace insisted that she travelled there within a few months of them arriving to see where they lived, how they were getting on. She had a wonderful time with them. But most of you will not know that this is where she almost got a criminal record. When leaving the plane in Melbourne, she pocketed the cheese, the Lurpak butter and an apple from her airline meal. Unfortunately, when she passed through the usual searches upon her arrival, she discovered how strict Australia were about bringing food into their country. Anyway, Grace managed to sweet talk herself out of being arrested. But son-in-law Mario, who was patiently waiting in the arrivals, thought she had missed the flight completely because everyone else who had came on the flight came and went. She was last out. Back here in Scotland, Grace loved her home in Ute Hill. She really did, especially her garden shed, where she would spend lots of time in it. Grace lived in Ute Hill for about 20 years, and then in November last year, she moved into sheltered housing at Smiddy Court in Lanark. She loved her new wee house. Not long after moving in, she got a new shed, and this time it was custom made. The shed man at Greenside Garden Centre came out. Now, usually you would go out and make sure there was enough room for the shed in the garden, but not this time. No. He measured Grace so she didn't bang her head on the top of the door frame when she went into the shed. That move to Smiddy Court was 3 years in the making. As Grace had walked through the complex one day, she spoke to Agnes, one of the wardens. She told Agnes she was going to come and live there one day. Agnes just smiled. But she was proved correct, leaving Agnes astounded. Grace also had an artistic side. She wrote her own poetry, even having one of her poems published in a book. She painted her own pictures, with many of the family receiving examples of her artwork to display in their homes. She enjoyed knitting all her life. But in later years, she also taught herself how to play the organ. She loved playing her tunes in the house to cheer herself up. She was also obsessed with Emmerdale and Coronation Street. To most people, we would know this is just drama. But to Grace, this seemed to be almost real life. She would relate stories to you. And it was only much later when it would dawn on you that that was actually a scene from one of her soaps and not real life. As Grace got older, perhaps her favourite pastime was chatting to strangers in the street, on the bus, in the train. These strangers became acquaintances and got used to meeting Grace on a regular basis. Everyone in Motherwell, and most recently in Lanark, would know exactly who you were talking about if you mentioned Grace. Everyone would comment how smartly dressed she always was, with her hair and makeup always pristine. She was a very independent person. She would do, or try and do, everything for herself. Even on the day she was taken into hospital, she was moving things about in her garden. In the right sense of the word, Grace was a very proud lady. Over the years, she kept good health, never really having any issues, and so Fiona knew her mum was unwell when she received a call from her on the Tuesday before she sadly passed. Grace was admitted to Wishaw General Hospital, where she very unexpectedly and suddenly passed away in the early hours of Thursday, the 12th of June. Each and every one of us here today deal with loss differently. Some surround themselves with family, some with friends, and some comfort themselves with faith. Faith that one day you will see our loved ones again. Grace had such a faith. And she talked about the Lord if the subject arose, even with strangers on a bus. But not only that, she lived out that faith on a daily basis by the way she treated those who she came in contact with, the way she loved her husband Gavin, her girls Fiona, Lynn, Derek, Mario, Fabio, Olivia, Ava, her wee brother Alex, sister-in-law Ina, and her cousin Irene. Each and every one of you were loved. Grace believed that her faith taught her that you should treat people with kindness, generosity, a faith which was a lifestyle. It wasn't a set of rules. And in the end, a faith which Grace believed would take her home to be with her beloved Gavin. Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this service to a close, I think it's only right that we listen to something that Grace wrote. We have mentioned a number of times that family were so important to Grace. I also mentioned that she wrote her own poetry. And it is now my privilege to invite Irene Moffat, Grace's cousin, to come forward now and to recite to us one of Grace's poems, all about her daughters. Thank you, Irene.
To my children, Fiona and Lynn, you are my life and the world to me. You are my pride and joy. Nothing can take what my heart holds dear, the love for my precious girls. Hold your head high, never bend it low, no matter what lies ahead. Love is a gift that you both know well. It keeps your heart aglow. Soon I will leave you to carry on the gift that you've both been given. Shine your light bright and your heart will glow, and it will reach the heavens. All my love, Mum. Dad and I were blessed with the two kindest and loving girls. May the Lord bless you both and all your loved ones. Faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love.
Lovely, Irene, thank you so much, and lovely words from a lovely lady. Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this part of the service to an end, we are going to sing one of perhaps Gracie's favourite hymns. And again, it's hymn number 2 in your order of service, How Great Thou Art. And again, I'm going to ask you please to stand as we sing this together. Thank you. gentlemen, please take your seats. Once again, on behalf of Fiona and Lynn, can I thank you all for being here today and for the support that you have shown them all. I also want to thank Stephen and all the staff here at McLaren's for the great care that they have shown Grace over these past number of days. The family are now going to make their way to New Monkland Cemetery for a short committal service, which all of you are more than welcome to attend with us. If you are unable to make that, then please make your way to Airdrie Golf Club, where the family would love to see you, and where I'm sure many more memories and stories of Grace will be told. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being here, and as we leave, we are going to listen to another song that Grace heard recently. It's Loch Lomond by John Barrowman, of all people. When Grace heard this song, a little tear came to her eye, and we're going to sit and we're going to listen to this song, and then Stephen and the staff will come forward and we will stand at that moment. Thank you.
On bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will never meet again. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland before you, where me and my true love will never meet again. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. 'Twas there that we parted in yon shady glen, on the steep, steep side of Ben Lomond, where in soft purple hue the Highland hills we view, and the moon coming out in the glow. Take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland before you, for me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. By yon bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will never meet again. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, you'll take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland before you, where me and my true love will never meet again. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. 'Twas there